Welcome to Generations. My name is Beverly Crosby, and I will be your host today. Today's topic is senior housing options. What do you need to know? When do you start looking? How much should you spend? Well, we're going to talk about those things plus more. So with that, let's meet our guest and our co-host. David, good to see you today.
Nice to be here. As someone who really should think seriously about downsizing, I'm going to be all ears today.
It's a broad topic, I know. I'm really looking forward to this too. And Elaine, how are you today?
Good, Beverly. Good to be here too. I agree with David. It's good to know what some of the different options we have as we make major moves from one location to another.
It's so true. Okay, and with that, we're going to meet our guest. This is Ann Carlson, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about Ann to start with. She has a long work history. She has worked as a licensed psychologist and a family therapist, and has created many educational materials over the years as well. And currently, she is the chair for the marketing program for Applewood Point Senior Cooperative. This is the one in Bloomington on Lindell in Minnesota. So, Ann, welcome today.
Hello, how are you?
Well, we're really excited to hear what you have to tell us about the co-ops, but can you tell us this? Not one size fits all. That's a saying for many things, right? So in other words, not everybody wants to go into a senior apartment or a co-op or whatever. Can you tell us what our options are? Aren't there about 5 or 6 different options that we have as seniors?
Yes, there are. Let me start with just rentals, where you rent an apartment and the management makes all decisions about colors of the walls and, whether they're going to replace the refrigerator. Then there's condos, and sometimes people mix up condos and cooperatives. Condos are an option where you purchase your apartment, but if you have to fix the sink or refrigerator or whatever, you call the fix-it person. Then the third option is a continuous care, and that would be a continuum of living options under one roof. So on one end of the continuum would be an independent living. The next level would be assisted living, where you'd have your own apartment, and then you'd purchase people coming in to help you with feeding or taking a shower or cleaning your apartment or whatever. And then the third option would be nursing home or memory care. So to review: rental, condo, co-op, continuous care.
Okay.
And I'm going to be talking about the co-op option.
Right. Okay, let me ask you this question then. How soon should someone that's looking at retirement, how soon should they start looking?
Well, that's a hard thing because there's still a lot of prejudice against seniors. An awful lot of people don't want to think of themselves as old and needing or wanting to move into some kind of other option out of their house. But in my opinion, it's important to know what the options are and to figure out what's the best thing for you. So I would say, depending on the person's health, around 70. And in the co-op option, you can get on a wait list, and and then when a unit comes up that you like, then you can purchase. However, that doesn't always work out that way. Um,
So
some
it's more-
people,
It's more of an individual thing, depending on your needs, your health, that sort of thing. Is that right?
yes, but a lot of people in the co-op movement say that people come too late in the option. Their health is probably declining a little bit. The thing that makes a co-op different from any other option is its intentionality about being in a community and having control over the governance of the co-op and also the activities that are planned. We plan the activities, not an activities director.
And we're going to talk about some of the pros and cons about co-op living here in a minute. Did somebody have a question?
So you talked about age 70 as an age to start thinking about this. Realistically, if you started at age 70, how long would it be before you could actually move in somewhere? What would be a normal?
That really depends. It depends on how old the co-op is. And in my experience, the co-op that we live in is 17 years old. So our waiting list is much shorter than one of the newer co-ops. So if you're in a co-op that's just fairly recently been built, then the waiting list tends to be really long. But our co-op we are really at a transition point where the people who moved in 1906 or 2006, excuse me, are now aging out. And, we were filled up 2 months ago, and now we have about 8 units available. So that's there's really a lifespan of wait lists, so shall we say.
Mm-hmm. And what would be the biggest downsides to being in a co-op? I'm always worried about bad things that I haven't anticipated or thought about.
Well, I think if you don't want to participate in the activities of the co-op, you really have to want to be in a community. And of course, the research on what makes people healthy and happy, being in a part of a community is high on the list. But I think it's important to check out how the board of directors, how competent they are, because that really does make a difference. They're in charge of the reserves, which is the amount of money that's reserved, put aside to fix the whatever, the ceilings, or to replace new appliances or whatever. So it's a good thing to ask about how competent this particular co-op is in managing the resources. The other thing is that you have to put down, I don't know exactly, in our co-op, you just put down a certain percentage of the cost of the co-op. And if people aren't in a house, then they may not have the sale of the house money to put into buying a co-op.
Okay. And then given that everything is online these days, is there the equivalent of Yelp or some sort of review site that looks at various co-ops and tries to collect data about what people's experiences in particular cooperative settings?
Yes, I think there is, but I don't know what it is specifically. I mean, each of the co-ops has their own Facebook page, but I haven't actually looked into whether there's a Yelp thing. We have in our materials a comparison between the cost of a condo and a cost of a co-op, but that's not the same as an independent rating.
Elaine, you were going to ask a question?
Yeah, I was gonna check too on that. And is there when you have prices, is there a scale on the co-op prices, or is it one fixed price?
No, the price depends on a couple of things. One is the size of the unit and the amenities in the unit. Okay, and here's how it works. This is a little bit complicated. When our co-op was set up, and actually all of the Applewoods are designed this way, you could put 15% down, 30, 60, or 90. So let's say that meant if you put 15% down, that meant an upfront fee would be less, but your monthly fee would be more. So in the case of my husband and I, we put down 90%, and our upfront fee was more, but our monthly fee is less. So it just sort of balances out what, you know, your finances are and how you want to do it.
Right. Then the other point is, so if, say, if a lady or a guy moved in and then eventually they passed on, do they get any of that money back, or does that stay with the co-op?
Well, since they own the co-op, they, you know, they sell it based on how it's appreciated, and the appreciation is fixed at 2% per month over the years. And one of the benefits of having a co-op is that the co-op will help you with the sale of it. So you don't have to get a realtor if you don't want to. The first 2 months are, you know, the co-op will do the marketing. That's why I'm the marketing chair, and, you know, have tours and so on. But with the approval of the co-op board of directors, if you want to get a realtor after 2 months, then you can, and you can negotiate up or down. The other thing I wanted to say is that if you added, like, okay, the co-op replaces things like refrigerators and stoves. All right, now they have a standard thing that they put in co-ops. But if you as an individual want something fancier, then you pay the extra, you know, of the cost, which is, in our case, we bought both a refrigerator and a stove. And we paid the cost above the standard fee, and that would be, we would put that on as part of our selling price, an improvement we had made.
Okay, let me
That's-
go back to something here. Just like apartment living or independent living, every place operates individually, and there are many differences. Aren't there also a lot of differences from one co-op to the other? Don't they?
Yes.
Independently.
Well, yes. I mean, what I was going to say is that the co-op that the Applewood, you know, manages all have washers and dryers within the units, and they have, you know, pretty nice finishings or furnishings, you know, like the quality of the cabinets and the floors and that kind of stuff. There are other co-ops that are cheaper to buy and cheaper the monthly payment, but they might have a washer dryer down the hall, or less amenities. All the Applewoods have a variety of amenities that you get to use for no fee when you purchase in. And those are things like having a great room that activities go on, or that you can reserve if you want to have a party. Smaller meeting rooms, exercise equipment, a craft shop, a wood shop, an underground heated garage with car washing. All of those things are included, and I forgot to say gardens outside as well.
And we're not advertising for Applewood, just to make that clear.
No.
You're just talking about the differences and the pros and the cons. And so, and because you have been doing this for a while, we're asking you for information about the one that you are in. Okay, so somebody has a house, maybe they're 60 and they already know they're going to retire. Maybe they don't want the upkeep of a house, which a lot of people are downsizing today. And they really, even with co-ops, if they think they want to be in a co-op, even with co-ops, they need to really check each one out individually, because there can be a lot of differences there. What about community living? Let's just talk about that. What is community living? And what are some pros and cons about that?
Well, community living in the co-op means that, especially the governance and the activities. And our building has a variety of activities, fewer numbers of committees than, say, our neighbor co-op, a mile away. We have a social committee that plans, monthly meals, outings. Sometimes the women, well, every week the women have an appetizer party. The men go out for breakfast. The men have a pancake breakfast once a month. There's book groups. There's as much or as little as you want to participate in. Our co-op has lots of game playing, bridge and Pokino and that kind of thing. That's not my cup of tea, so I don't participate in that. So the good thing is that if I wanted to start a seminar on healthy aging, for example, I could do that. I could just say, folks, I'm doing this on Tuesday afternoon. Would you like to come?
But in the end, you sort of have to be down for liking being connected to a variety of people. It's really not a choice if you're an introvert who likes privacy and seclusion. It doesn't sound like co-ops are the ideal arrangement for those kinds of people. Would that be right? Or
yes, that would be absolutely right. Because, like any community, if you don't have, or any family, people have to do stuff in order to keep it going. Somebody has to take out the garbage once a week, or take out the recycle once a week is what the real issue is. Or check the windows and doors every evening. I mean, those are little jobs that people do.
Do you mean there's not a maintenance person that takes care of those things, or the residents actually take care of those things?
Co-ops hire a management company to have a manager and a maintenance person and often a cleaning person. So our co-op has those three people that are full-time employees. Like some of the bigger co-ops, like 7500 York, my understanding is they have something like 30 employees, but it's like 3 times larger in terms of numbers of apartments than the one that I live in.
Mm-hmm. So there is a big difference. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like my husband is as chair of the Buildings and Grounds committee, and that job is about seeing, what needs to be fixed if there's a leak someplace, or there's, something or other needs to be painted. He makes sure that it gets painted, and he does all the planning for, he and cooperatively with the finance committee for projects like siding. It may come down in 5 years, all the siding would have to be replaced. This past fall, all the carpeting in the common areas and painting of the common areas was done. And that was a chunk of change, that the refurbishment committee had to decide what colors of carpeting to put in the common spaces and so forth and so on.
Okay. Go ahead, Elaine.
So another question I have is, with a co-op, say you turn it around and you sell it, what is the lead time to for co-op to be on the market or to sell it? Do you sell it within a month, 2 months?
It varies a lot. It varies with how big your co-op is, how much upgrades you've done. It varies with how many other units are on sale. Like some of the popular size ones are 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, and a den, and they go fairly quickly. So it can be anywhere from immediately 1 month to 4 or 5 months. you know, what I've discovered is that if it goes at over 2 months, then people get a realtor,
Mhm.
but they don't have to.
Are there certain areas in the country that are more populated with co-ops, or places where it's easier to find this kind of living, and other places where it's really hard?
That's a really good question. Minnesota was the place where co-ops were started. And there's an organization actually here in town called the National Association of Housing Cooperatives, and it has spread to Colorado. I don't know to what extent it is available in other parts of the country, but it's really big in Minnesota. There are lots and lots. There's 19 Applewood co-ops, and then there's Gramercy and Real Life and a bunch of other different companies that oversee them.
It's,
And you know,
go ahead. Go ahead.
it's popular because of the community aspect of it, and it is cheaper than other because you're sharing costs.
Okay. You said, did you say that co-ops, the first one built here in Minnesota was 30 years ago? Did I hear you
Yeah,
say that?
I
Oh,
did.
okay, all right. It seems,
It was 7,500 York in
okay,
Edina.
okay. Yeah, it seems that where I live is, I see more and more senior buildings going up, you know, whether they're apartments or, you know, they're the 55 plus buildings, but, or they're, you know, there, somebody else that I know has a twin home, but it's still in a community. They still have a little garden area, things like that. So there's really, it just depends on what a person wants as far as lifestyle, wouldn't you say? Don't you think that's a
Yes.
really? Mhm.
So we have 3 grandkids who like to visit. Would those grandkids visiting a co-op feel welcome, and does that create any problems in terms of managing in a community environment?
No, not at all. I forgot to mention that every co-op has at least one and maybe two guest rooms that is you can rent for a reasonable fee. And at least in our co-op, we have lots of 2-bedroom units. And you know, depending on whether if you put a bed in them, you can have them stay there or rent the, you know, this extra room, which is beautiful. I mean, it's like a really good high-class hotel.
Also, how about something like internet connection, as long as we're on Zoom here? Is there collective Wi-Fi available for everybody in the building, I assume, or?
Yes. Good Wi-Fi and then cable TV, all one price. As I said, everything that you pay for the month is included except for electricity and your phone. And you have to have homeowners insurance, which is something you have to buy yourself.
Right. Okay. Just going back to the financial part. Excuse me. And we're getting close on our time here, but let's just talk for briefly about the financial part. There's a big difference in the pricing and how there's different levels of the way you can buy into a co-op from one company to the other. Isn't that right?
Yes, there is. And even within the company, like there's a new Applewood going up in Edina that the costs of the units are starting at 700,000 all the way up to $1 million. And the co-op in which I live in, the top costs for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and a den apartment would be about $350,000 if you put down 90%. So there's
big differences, and I know
huge difference.
There's even some co-ops that you can buy into, but for low income people as well. I have checked into that. I don't have any more information on, costs or anything like that, but so there's something for everybody, basically, as far as co-ops, and of course the other apartments and senior living or whatever too. And we're getting close to the end of our time here with you. One of the other interests that you have is working with the homeless, and particularly seniors. There are homeless seniors. Can you tell us, just take a quick minute to tell us about that?
Yeah, I retired as director of the Dignity Center, which is an outreach program of Hennepin Avenue United Methodist Church. I retired from there in 2014. And since that time, seniors have become homeless a lot. And part of it's because the cost of apartments and, some seniors not having enough money. Well, if you live on Social Security, and that's it, it's about $25,000, 22 to 25, and that doesn't really cover the cost of renting an apartment. And it just makes me ill to see senior people in wheelchairs on street corners.
What can be done about that? Are people helping them in some way or the other?
Well, in Minneapolis, there's a big move to build affordable housing. A consortium of churches has started, pooling money from a variety of churches to build. They get money from the government, local money the churches put in. But the real issue is there simply isn't enough affordable housing. And, Social Security is not really enough money for most people to live on. I don't know. I mean, it seems like a government response is in order, but I'm not sure how we would get it today.
Okay, well, thank you for putting your time and your effort into hearing about those people and trying to help them out. So thank you, Anne, for joining us today.
Thank you. I enjoyed being a part of it.
And David and Elaine, thank you for your great questions as always. And viewers, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on Generations.